Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fan Sports New York Varsity. I'm your host, Frank Langella, joined by my co-host, Marsilio Langella. And Mars, this is our Week 3 preview for Section 1A. We've had a really good 2 weeks, and we're chugging along. I mean, we're almost at the midway point for the regular season, and we have some really important games coming up that are going to kind of dictate where the standings are headed. So I'm really excited, Mars. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. It's been fun, and it's been interesting to see a lot of these matchups kind of go out, and these games have been, have just been wild. A lot of these unexpected wins and losses. So I'm looking forward to the next one. Absolutely.
I want to welcome our fans. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Again, if you're new, we cover Section 1 football. Make sure you guys follow our social medias that you can see on the screen. You can get all our content from our website at famsportsny.com, along with our merchandise and any donations that you make to the show, which we appreciate any of it. Also, any of the merchandise that you see from other teams, whether it's hats, shirts, those are ones that we've purchased or have been donated by the program. I want to thank those programs who have donated, and we're always accepting. So if you guys want to donate, we always appreciate it. Everything goes back to the show. But let's talk about the games on slate, Mars. We'll go over a couple of the previews, and then we'll do our game picks like we always do. The games on slate on Friday, Lakeland is 1-1 at Mayapack. That is a late league game. Mayapack's also 1-1. Friday, Walter Pan is 0-2 at Somers, who's 2-0, a league game. Harrison 2-0 at Nyack is a league game. Clarkstown North at Pelham, intriguing matchup. That's also a league game in the South. Sleepy Hollow at Rye, league game in the South. Eastchester at Tappan Zee, league game in the South. That's a Saturday game. Another Saturday game, Brewster at Lords, North league game. And then Yorktown at John J. Cross River, also a league game in the North. And obviously when we make our game picks, Mars, we want to get over 75%. Last week I went a perfect 8-0. I think I'm going to be a little bold this week. A little bit rough one for you, Mars. 5-3.
Yeah.
Got to step that one up. And our buddies over at Lohud, they also went 8-0. But let's go over a couple games, Mars. And let's start Harrison 2-0 at Nyack, who's 0-2. This is a South League game. Harrison won at Sleepy Hollow. Nyack lost versus Pelham. And these two teams, although haven't played since 2004, where Nyack won the last time, they've split it four wins and 4 losses between the two teams. It's a really intriguing matchup. Let's start with Harrison. Offensively, they run the triple option offense, and to me, the engine of that offense obviously is A.J. Troilo. He's had 267 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns over the last 2 games. A fantastic football player for this team, and the most important, he's the guy who gets the engines going on those early downs in the option offense. And Nyack, the last 2 games have shown that you can run the ball on Nyack. You saw Shelton, you saw Sparadino the last 2 games have success. And I'm looking at this offensive line who's done a pretty darn good job. They have those wide splits to try to create some lanes and create some nice angle blocks. And they hit the hole hard. Another guy to keep in mind who's kind of been a pleasant surprise, a young guy, Chris Mclaulen, the sophomore. This kid 5'8", but he is fast and quick. He had a receiving touchdown last week, had a special teams touchdown the week before. This guy's a speedy guy for them. And again, the offensive line, to me, is what's really going to dictate this game because Nyack has some size, right? Guys like Ranello, Ventriglio, I think it's Haynes is one of the guard, but they have a bunch of guys that have been really solid for them, and they got to continue to be. And then I go to the defense, Mars. And to me, defensive and outside linebacker John Karapitas, he was a Frank's finest. He has been wrecking havoc off the edge these last 2 games. And defensively as a whole, they force turnovers. They have been dominant up front, and they have to continue to do that. This team has really made plays in each phase of the game. And against Nyack has some good size, again, like I mentioned up front, but they're still trying to figure out who they rely on running the ball and catching passes. And so this front can make it really difficult for them if they can get penetration. It starts with Karapitas. Then I look at special teams, right? Nick Reed, he's one of the best kickers around, and we talked about it last week. And I'll talk about he's practically an automatic at the extra point. And this is a guy who continually puts offenses, kicks touchbacks. So the offenses have to go 75-plus yards every time. And again, this is not college. This is not the NFL. For a high school offense to go 75 yards each time, Mars, is not easy, right? Offenses are not that efficient at the high school level. So again, having that weapon is big. When I go to Nyack offensively, again, I do think they're going to try to run a little bit towards the outside. Again, I think you look at this offensive line led by Aiden Carton, he can move guys, right? But you want to see everybody else try to step up. And when you look at, trying to figure out, I mentioned it, talking about Harrison, who's going to be the reliable guy running the ball. And one guy, Riddell Booten, he's had a touchdown in each of the last 2 weeks. And again, he's kind of been one of their young football player. He's kind of been a reliable guy, reliable playmaker for them. And I'm looking to see the quarterback step up, make some quick throws, hold on. Again, you can't hold on to the ball too long because those edge guys are coming from Harrison. So be decisive where you want to go with it. Make smart decisions and try to get some of these young playmakers out in space. But to me, starts up front, led by Aiden and the rest of this offensive line to try to move bodies against a Harrison defense that has played pretty well. Defensively, it all starts with slowing down Troilo. Again, I don't think you can stop him, but again, this is going to be a heavy reliance on that defensive line and those linebackers closing in on the triple option. Again, they'll run it up the gut, they'll run it off tackle, they'll pitch it. They throw the whole option sink at you. So again, penetration is going to be key, and making the correct reads and tackling your reads consistently. Consistently attack your reads. They have an option play. Practically, it feels like it hits up every gap. So it's going to be really important for those guys to close and not get moved off their spot. Mars, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, well, I'll talk with Harrison. I mean, the triple option with AJ Troyer is going to definitely be, it's very deadly. It's very, very dangerous, and I think that most defenses already have struggles with it. But I really think it's going to be the fact that the offensive line needs to be the big difference in this game. They definitely need to make their presence known, and they need to open the lanes for their offense. Defensively, the front seven needs to be have a party in the backfield. They got to be causing mayhem, causing havoc, and I think that if they can do that, they're going to be definitely the key to success in this game. From the Nyack point of view, I mean, your offense is definitely trying to be break and contain, get to the outside, allow your skill players to make the big plays. But their offensive line definitely needs to really step it up and really set the tone for this offense, especially when it comes to running the ball. And when it comes to being the most important thing to me is be smart. Do not force a turnover, because once you're giving Harrison another chance to be back on the field, they're going to drain the clock and just drain your energy away. And I feel like that's going to be, definitely counterproductive to what you're trying to do on the offense. And defensively, your front seven needs to close down on the triple option. Be disciplined. Stay to your rule, and you got to just play with the punches, right? Yep. You have to win those early downs. And I think if you do that, they'll definitely set you apart.
Let's go to another game, Mars. Clarkstown North, 1-1 at Pelham, who's 2-0. South League game. Clarkstown North had an impressive victory over Eastchester last week. Pelham beat Nyack, and I thought it was a really important win for that program. But these two teams only played once since 2004, which was in 2019, where Clarkstown North won 28-14. And let's start with Clarkstown North. Mars, offensively, they run that wing tee. They have a powerful running football team, and it's led by that offensive line, guys like Pat Reynolds and a bunch of other guys, some good sides to them. They have we talked about it last week, tight end who can block in Chaikun. Again, good sized kids who can move people, and they'll do, they can pull, they can trap, they can seal. These guys just power through you. And they get everybody involved. And they have shifty runners, not big, powerful runners, but guys who are shifty in the hole, and when they get to the open field, can hit some big-time runs. And it starts with Gilzine, who kind of acts like that fullback. He had 121 yards and 3 touchdowns last week. Runs inside, he can run outside. And to me, it's the guy with the sweeps and counters is Alex Bolello. He had 179 yards rushing, Mars, and 3 touchdowns, include 2 50-plus yarders for touchdowns. This guy doesn't look like a super fast, super physical guy, but when he gets a lane, this guy can hit that gear really quickly. But I'm looking at the quarterback spot, Mars, because I do think against a tough Pelham defense, they're going to have to make some plays via play action. I'm looking at the quarterback, Lex Malizia, the junior. This kid, 5'11". I thought he made some nice plays last week. He's going to have to step up, and I think he's going to have to be an important figure in this game for them to win. Defensively, Mars, again, you're going against a power-running football team. Not the same style as you, but similar concept, as in they want to get north and south, and they got to stop. Again, they have a physical offensive line. They have a beast of a running back in Shelton, and running the football is key to their offense. So to me, Clarkstown North has big D tackles. The defensive ends have some length and athleticism to them. I think they're going to attack off tackle on Clarkstown North, so it's going to be really important for those linebackers and those edge guys to squeeze down those holes. Don't get kicked out. They like to pull linemen and kick those guys out and try to wash those D tackles enough to create a lane to wail on you. So this is going to be really important for Clarkstown North. gap responsibility-wise. And this secondary, again, I talk about a guy like Kenny Loudon who makes a lot of plays for this. The secondary definitely gets involved. Clarkstown North is a tough team. Going to Pelham, Mars, offensively, we know their identity as well. I talked about it. Power running game, out of the gun. Thomas Shelton is a beast. The guy has 4 touchdowns in 2 games. But again, this offensive line have been physical these first 2 games. They're going to have to continue to be. They have been impressive. Down blocks, pulling. They're going to have to move some big body guys out of Clarkstown North. It's going to be tough to run in between the guards, but I do think they attack off tackle. I do think they try to get on the edge a little bit. But to me, their identity is north and south running. But I'm looking again at the quarterback spot. I'm looking at this passing game and the quarterbacks. Fred Beck, Reen, they're going to have to make some plays out on the edge because consistently running up the gut is not going to be easy against this front. I know you have a physical offensive line. They have a physical D-line. You want to see who's the best, but it's going to be tough, and there's going to be some give and some take. But if they can make some plays in the passing game, it'll really help them offensively. Defensively, you got to stop those big plays. I talked about Clarkstown North can hit those big plays if they get lanes. Again, Clarkstown North had 3 touchdowns of over 35 yards, 2 of them over 50 yards last week. So you have to rally. I think Pelham's best unit is this defense. They have guys at each level who can make plays, and they're going to have to step up. This is a huge win, a huge opportunity at home to get a win against a real solid Clarkstown North team. Mars, what do you want to talk about?
When I look at this matchup, it's very interesting because I'll first talk about Clarkstown North, and I think that they definitely are playing with a purpose. They're playing really, the offensive line's been pretty effective, and I think that the backs are really what's the most impressive because, they just have this shiftiness to them. They have this ability to make plays on the smallest of lanes, and I think that if the offensive line can give them that opportunity to just make a play once you give them some space, I think that they can really hurt you. And
they can.
From the defensive point of view, it's going to be really about the front 7. I mean, you have to keep contained and try to close down the space, close down the level of play. Make sure that they can't get to the outside, and really allow your linebackers to come in and make plays. From the Pelham point of view, you're really trying to hit the power running game, and it really has to do with the offensive line just moving bodies, right? They have to move people and really show their strength up front. But you're really trying to get the off tackle plays going. If you can, that'd be a very smart idea. From the defensively, you can bend, but you cannot break. You cannot allow a big play to occur. You have to really roll with the punches. They're going to get some yardage on you, but you can't allow a big play to happen. You have to just continually grind and let the play go, let the game hopefully go in your favor.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to another game, Mars. Sleepy Hollow 0-2 at Rye, who's 3-0. South League game. Rye finally playing at their home stadium, I believe, since the hurricane came rummaging through. Last week, Sleepy Hollow lost to Harrison. Rye won versus Tappan Z. Rye is 12-1 versus Sleepy since 2004. They have won 5 straight. Let's start with Sleepy Hollow. Offensively, they want to go into the spread. You're going to see some QB runs. They'll bring in some athletes to run at the QB spot, and you're going to see a bunch of the quick passing game. I think that's the smartest route to go. And to me, it starts with their best player, Mike Scaglione, who is a Frank's finest, but he'll line up at wide receiver, line up at quarterback. He's obviously a safety, and this is a guy who's going to have to make big plays. Again, he lines up in multiple spots. He had a fumble return for a touchdown last week. He is their best playmaker. Tough, gritty guy. Getting him the ball as much as possible to try to hit a big play or two against this Rye defense is going to be big. And I'm looking at the young quarterback. Again, I talked about it last week. I'll talk about it again. Tyler Mahood, I believe is his name, the junior. You want to see growth, right? Being smart, being decisive with the ball, but he's got to get the ball out of his hands quickly because this, Rye is going to bring pressure. Rye is, they like to stunt. They like to bring linebackers, outside linebackers, and try to hit the quarterback. So be smart with the football. Again, not the worst thing is to take a sack, but forcing the ball into coverage is a bad thing because you're going to give Rye extra possessions, which would be a disaster. Defensively, the first priority is try to slow down that guy, Caden Whaling, which is not easy. You're going to get a heavy dose of Caden Whaling and Tebedino blocking. You got to be aggressive defensively. You got to create penetration. Again, this is not the biggest offensive line, right? So you want to try to create penetration. You're not a big front, but you can try to shoot gaps and try to cause disruption because once Caden Whaling gets going, it really becomes a disaster for you. When I look at Rye, Mars, obviously you start with Caden Whaling. We know the kind of talent that he is, but again, this offense has shown that they can hurt you multiple ways, and the play action from their quarterback runs, adds a dynamic to this offense that is tough to stop. And so, Whaling last week, Mars, 238 yards and 3 touchdowns running the ball. And you got to give a lot of credit to this offensive line, to their H-back and Tepedino. They just beat on you and beat on you and beat on you. And Whaling just finds these lanes and just hits it. And he just keeps coming. It's a 4-quarter battle, and they're going to obviously rely on that until someone can prove that they can stop it. And if they do try to, when they get ahead of the chains, when they start hitting these big plays, they'll hit you with the play action, and the big-time play comes. And that's what I'm expecting. Quarterback Kovacs, throwing to guys like Surhoff, Bartlett, Berkery, that balance attack, if they continue to improve on that balance attack, they could be a deadly offense, and they've shown that so far. Defensively, we know guys like Garnett, right? He's a guy who consistently is a presence out there. But to me, what's impressed me the most about Rye is not just their bend and don't break defense, but someone new each week steps up, right? Like last week, Carter Barford, 7 tackles, 2 sacks. A guy like Charlie Swarak, he's been a very active guy the last 2 weeks. And it feels like every week you get a new guy on Rye stepping up and making a play defensively. And so my question is, who's going to be the guy this week? Because someone is going to. And again, going against a young quarterback, they're going to be bringing pressure, going to try to get to him. There'll be opportunities, I think, to make some plays and force some turnovers. Mars, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I feel like when I'm looking at this game, I'm definitely going to be kind of keying in on the young quarterback for Sleepy Hollow, and I feel like you have to be efficient, right? Rye is definitely, like you said, is going to send the pressure. They're going to try to make you have a mistake of some kind, and they're going to try to capitalize on that. So I feel like for Sleepy Hollow, you have to be efficient with the ball. Do not turn the ball over. Do not force anything into any bad situations. And for the offensive line, you're going to have to pick up on some of these blitzes. And for this passing game, it's going to be quick, right?
Yep.
And it has to be, right? Because I don't think you have enough time to really hold on to it. Defensively, you have to try to slow down Keaton Whaling. I mean, how difficult. I mean, that's not an easy thing to do in this league, but obviously it's kind of the obvious stuff. But I think that for the front seven, you just have to cause mayhem. Cause it so it's not as smooth as what Rye is used to. I mean, this offensive line is great for Rye, and I feel like, if you can cause, some movement up front, right? You want to be able to throw some stunts that may not be, as easy to pick up. And if you could do so, cause the offensive line to think a little bit, cause them to be a little bit confused, and then maybe you'll have a chance to
they
really slow down.
Gaps. They got to shoot gaps against this team, or it's going to be a long day.
And for Rye's offense, I mean, it's the Keaton Whaling show featuring the offensive line. I feel like that's like this should be the title of this
with
season
Tepedino, because he is
such
a big. That H back, he is a big part of that rush offense. Yeah, no, I know you're not. I'm just saying.
It's almost like this Rye. The whole point of that was that Rye, this offense feel like there's so many stars that you can kind of talk about here, that each one of them contributes a different thing to this offense. And I feel like when defenses are trying to scheme against Rye, they're like, well, we got to stop this run game, but then they can just hit you with the pass, right? They have the ability to hit you with so many different things, and I feel like it's just, they just have to do their thing. I feel like just continue doing what you do best.
Yeah. Will Rye lose focus? Will Rye not be as sharp?
Exactly. And defensively, I mean, like you said, I feel like this has been a complete team atmosphere. Yes. Everyone is doing something, and I feel like that's the most important thing about this defense. It's not one guy that's going to take the lead. It's everyone is doing something, and they're all making a play.
Absolutely. Let's go to another game, Mars. Brewster 1-1 at Lourdes, who's 1-2. This is a North League game. Last week, I think both these teams got a little beat up. Brewster lost to Somers. Lourdes lost to Mayapack. These two teams have battled it out since 2004. Brewster 6-4 versus Lourdes. The last time they played in the spring, Lourdes won 35-7. Let's start with Brewster, Mars. So offensively, in that last loss, they lost 3 starters during the game. Their quarterback Donahue, 2 of their offensive linemen, and Costales and Rienzi. I'm interested to see what the status is for all 3 young men. Those are 3 big guys to lose. And so, to me, attacking Lourdes, you're going to have to, whether you have a new quarterback or not, you're going to have to attack in the passing game, Mars, and out on the edge, right? Because Lourdes has size in the middle. They want to bang and grind with you. To me, it's attacking off tackle and attacking the edge is going to give you the best chance to win. And if Donahue can't go, I'm looking at their quarterback, Massimo Perello, the junior, who stepped in last game. This is a guy who's a little bit more of a shifty, speedy guy than Donahue. Obviously not as big, not as strong, but this is a guy who can be a bit of a dual threat guy, and I would imagine that they want to try to test those edges with him, and him getting the ball out to those playmakers, because I do think they have an advantage on the outside. Guys like Nick Saye, number 12, he had a touchdown last week, making plays in the passing game. Joshua Thomas, Bryce Washington, Luke Sanchez, they got to get the ball out of their hands into these playmakers in space, because I do think that they can do some damage against Lord's defense, who has struggled. And again, I look at the offensive line. How are they going to handle the size of Lord's up front, missing potentially 2 of their starters? So a guy like Luca Sacamano is going to have to step up. And we're going to see those guys who step in if they can't go. How are they going to react? They're not going to have to be big. I mean, this is a big game for both teams. And again, it's got to be next man up, and you have to go on the road and win. Defensively, again, you kind of saw what teams did against Lords in the Maypac game. I would imagine that Bruce is going to try to copy a similar mindset. They're not as big as Maypac, but I do think they're going to bring out some goal line looks, right? 6-man front, everyone close to the line of scrimmage, filling in a gap. Try not to give these Lords linemen a good enough angle to move them. So, again, you're looking at this defensive line. Can they win at the point of attack? Can these linebackers attack? Because that's what Lords, they try to move bodies and attack off tackle, and you're going to see counters. You're going to see a bunch of pitches. Everything looks the same, but a new guy is going to have the ball. So it's hard to see where the ball is. That's why you have to attack your gap. You have to be responsible for your gap. So I'm looking at these guys as a D-line and secondary. Can they win the point of attack, and can the secondary, they don't block the secondary a lot. So those secondary guys are going to have to make a lot of tackles. They're going to have to step up and fill holes when they run at them. So, again, losing guys like potentially Rienzi and Costales, those are big-time players for their team. And we're going to see who steps up for them. For Lords, offensively, again, depending on, I thought they got a little bit beat up last week. Interested to see the status of some of their players. But I want to see this offensive line bounce back. I want to see them do a better job creating holes. I thought last week they created holes, Mars, but they closed quickly. So they got to do a better job of sustaining blocks. And these running backs got to hit the hole a little bit quicker. I mean, again, I like Salato. I like DeSocio. It just felt like they were a little late to the holes last week. And so I'm expecting them to bounce back and try to hit the holes a little bit harder. And I'm also expecting a bounce-back game from their quarterback, Matthew Krause. I mean, there were times that he missed some throws that he probably wants back. This is kind of one of their heart and soul players of that team on both sides of the ball. So I'm interested to see him step up this week. I'm looking at both these young quarterbacks as guys who can really make a mark in this game, an important game for both teams. Defensively, for Lords, because of the injuries to the offensive line, quarterback of Brewster, I'm expecting to see a lot of spread, and I'm expecting them to try to test your defense on the outside. And again, it didn't. You struggled with it last week. This time around, can you do a better job of tackling? Can you do a better job of finding the ball? Because there were sometimes they had good coverage, but they just didn't find the ball, and they let the receiver catch it. Right, so this is going to be important. They got to prevent the big plays on the outside if they want to win. They got to play complementary football. I mean, offensively, they're a bump and grind offense. So what do you have to do defensively? Prevent big plays, because your offense is going to hold the ball for a while. And if you can prevent big plays, if you don't have miscues on special teams, which was huge, you're going to have a chance to win. And so I'm looking at this defense that has to step up and has to improve. They give up too many big plays. Mars, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a tough one. I mean, the reason why is because you have kind of like two teams that were beat up in the last game, like I mentioned. And I feel like, from the Brewster standpoint, you have a lot of injuries. And the question is going to be about, how many injuries do they have to their key players and how bad are they? But the biggest thing is going to be, will this passing game be, any semblance to what it was with Donahue being there? Now, granted, we don't know the extent of any of Donahue's injuries, but I do know that, the passing game for Brewster is definitely going to be an important thing, especially against Lords, where they struggled with defending the pass. So yep. I think that it's all going to start with the offensive line to allow for, for the run game to be effective, but really to protect the quarterback to be able to make those plays. And I think that if they can do that, they're going to have a passing presence, which will then definitely open up your playbook for more opportunities. And from a defensive point of view, what Maypac did was being a more, like you said, a goal line set, something that is at least sticking in the gaps and kind of saying playing big on big. Like, we're gonna try to match your size, and I'm wondering if Brewster can do that, right? Can Brewster stick in the gaps and not move, right? Or at least cause some issues on trying to open up the holes for these backs. From Lords, I think the offensive line definitely needs to sustain these blocks a little bit longer than it did against Maypac. And you mentioned the fact that they did get open, but it was just they couldn't hit the hole fast enough, and that was the biggest problem that they've had. And I really think they're gonna need to do that in order to have any sort of success, because they're their game plan is we're going to run you over, right? And you need to have that in order to really enact that plan defensively. I mean, you have to get a pass defense. You have to be able to defend the pass. Now, granted, Donahue,
again, with the injuries to the O-line, they could get some pressure.
Yeah,
which could help the secondary.
I think that they kind of have to, because I think you need to keep contained. You definitely need to get to the quarterback in any sort of passing situation, because now, you might be able to alleviate some of that pressure on your secondary. And I think that'll be kind of their key to success here.
And it's interesting because, again, two different quarterbacks. When Donahue's in, you're expecting more down the field passing, and if he's going to run, it's power running, right? With the other quarterback, you're expecting some more outside runs, right? And maybe some quicker throws. So it's interesting to see. Again, you have to prepare for both if both are going to play. But let's go to the game of the week, Mars. And this is another really intriguing game to me. Yorktown 1-1 at John Jay Cross River, who's also 1-1. North League game. This is John Jay Cross River's homecoming, Mars. We all know about homecoming, a big festivity. So Yorktown traveling into chaotic environment. And last week, both these teams got back on track, right? Yorktown beat Walter Panis. John Jay Cross River beat Lakeland. These two teams had battled it out since 2004. I mean, John Jay is 6-5 versus Yorktown. They won in the spring in 2021, 21-0. This has been an interesting little rivalry between these two teams, two well-renowned programs in Class A. And let's start with Yorktown. Offensively, I felt like the offensive line got a little bit healthier, and it was big. It was really important to see big number 74, Dion Bouchage, excuse me if I butchered your name, return last week, because he is their biggest lineman. He's a guy who helps anchor one side of the ball. They move him around sometimes on left side to right side because they love running behind him so much. But I'm looking at this offensive line, and they need to create a physicality to run downhill against a bit of an undersized Cross River team. So I mentioned Broussage, Capelli, Bowen, Baker, Cermelli. I do think they have a bit of a size advantage, and Yorktown likes to create some up-tempo so they can keep the defense on his heels. But I'm looking, can they get a consistency inside running game, north-south running game, and not just on the outside? So I look at their running back, Carlin, looking at their quarterback, Mireles, who last week was really good for them. He was 8 of 14 passing, 165 yards and a touchdown, but also 80 rushing and 3 touchdowns, including some runs inside. But they got to get more consistent running the ball inside, Mars. No Marco McKnight. Again, don't know the status of him, but he hasn't played yet. He's a huge piece on both sides of the ball, and probably they're more power runners. So you got to figure that out. But I'm looking at a guy like Dylan Carter, who's a bit of a home run hitter for them. A lot of outside runs with him, pitches, sweeps. When he gets on the outside and in space, he can hit that big play. I mean, he had 114 yards and a touchdown last week, only on 5 carries, including a 60-yarder for a touchdown. If Dylan Carter can actually get better at running inside, he could be a dynamic runner for them all over the field. Now, he's got to get more consistent running the ball through contact inside, because I tend to see that whenever he's in, they're running outside or doing counters. So that's something that definitely they can work on. Defensively, again, you're going to be facing an up-tempo, no-huddle, calling plays right from the line of scrimmage type offense, and they're doing that to prevent you from substitutions, right? So your base guys, I know Yorktown likes to bring in some guys on 3rd and long. It's going to be tough in the up-tempo. But to do that, to stop the up-tempo, you got to win on first down, right? Because if you don't, if they get 6 or 7 yards on first down, that's when it feels like that fast break in basketball, right? Where it's hard to stop. And so, to me, again, I look at this defensive line against an offensive line that is scrappy, but not very big, right? Can this defensive line win up front is going to be big. And they got to funnel everything inside the tackle box because they have a bunch of skill guys that can hurt you one-on-one at Cross River, and they want to get to the outside. So you got to funnel everything into your linebackers, like Capelli, who's a guy who just soaks up tackles. But another guy, Vito DeBellis, really active. Right, he was a guy he was one of the leaders in tackles. He had a sack last week. This guy can have a big game. He plays that inside linebacker, outside linebacker guy, and he's going to be someone who's going to be really active. But they got to prevent this game from being an east-west game because that's what Cross River wants to play. You want it to be a north-south game for Yorktown. When I go to John Jay offensively, again, they have skill guys who can move around and do different things. Some slot guys can line up in the backfield. They can line up out wide. These are guys that can really hurt you. They have a lot of speed. They got to call that up-tempo to try to keep the defense from changing personnel and to keep them on their toes and force them to line up quickly, which is a big thing. They want to catch you and create matchups and confuse the defense. I'm expecting to see a lot of that. And a guy who impressed me last week, Tyler Palladino, lines up at wide receiver, running back, lined up at quarterback, taking snaps. He had 71 yards rushing, 63 yards receiving. He had 3 touchdowns. He was really big for them last week. And we all know about Chris DiChiara, who I feel like there's a big game coming, Mars. He had one in the first week. He was a little bit slowed down last week. He only had 78 yards rushing and a touchdown on 20 carries. He tries to bounce it out a little bit too much. I feel like there's some lanes on the inside. I know he's really fast, really explosive. I really like him as a football player. But they're another team trying to find that inside running consistently. Again, they're not very big. You don't have to be the biggest guy to run inside, right? But you just have to find the lanes and be shifty and make guys miss in tight quarters, which is not easy, right? But I think Cross River's also trying to figure that part out. But he's someone who's dangerous as well. And then obviously with the wide receivers, right? Zaccanino, Shapiro, those guys on the outside can make a lot of plays. Dom Savastano was a guy who came in. He lines up at the running back spot. He had 2 rushing touchdowns last week. Again, not a very big guy, but a shifty guy. Is he someone who can step up and help spell DiChiara? Would be interesting. Defensively, Mars, to me, last week I really thought they brought it physically. Week 1, again, you give up 50 points. As a defensive unit, you're embarrassed, right? They came back last week, got a shutout, and I thought they swarmed to the ball. They did a much better job of tackling and stopping the run. And that's what they're going to have to do again. I want to see them continue to do that, continue to progress. And to me, again, they want to create pressure. I think they're going to bring pressure on Mireles, who he struggled week 1 against pressure. Last week, he did a much better job of attacking the outside on those rollouts and being more accurate. I think Cross River is not going to want to, they're going to try to force him inside the pocket and try to get him off platform a lot. Mars, what do you want to talk about?
I mean, this game is definitely, in my opinion, a showdown. I mean, these are both teams that had bounced back performances, and I feel like this is going to be really the game that sets one of these teams apart, right? And I think that when you look at Yorktown, I think they have gotten healthier. They want to really establish the ability to just run downhill compared to Cross River, who definitely, I think, has the speed advantage, but Yorktown has, in my opinion, the size advantage, and I think that they're going to try to isolate that characteristic, and they're going to try to just run right at you, and I think that'll be really the most effective thing for them.
If they consistently can, because that sometimes they run a little bit too much east and west too.
No, it's true, and I think that if they can establish that, I think that would be a smart thing for them. Defensively, I feel like when you look at Cross River, they're always trying to get you on your heels, right? They're trying to, like you said, up tempo style of offense. They want to get to the outside. They always have the speedy kids on this team, and they want to break contain and really set those one-on-one matchups. And the question is, can you keep contained? Can you really bottle everything to the inside and really allow your front seven to really try to make the plays on these speedy backs? And from Cross River's perspective, I said this before, you have a speed advantage, right? You need to get to the outside. You have multiple guys on your team that can really hit the home run. Yeah. And I really think that, Chris DiChiara, and you mentioned, he's just a guy that can make a play out of nothing. And I think that when you give him an inch, he's going to take a mile. Yeah,
but he's got to find that fine line between dancing too much and taking what they give you.
I'm not going to say guarantee, but I feel like I have to say it. I'm almost guarantee that, after a game where he was kind of caught in his tracks, dancing a little too much, he's now going to start playing that downhill. I'm seeing the hole. I'm just going to take it and go. Right. I feel like after a week of practice of when coaches is going to be yelling at you all week and saying, just hit the hole. I feel like he's just going to hit the hole. And I think that he's going to be doing that. And once he does, you're going to really see the real Chris DiChiara come out. And I think he's going to make a lot of plays. Defensively, I mean, you have to be more aggressive, and I think that they will, and I just feel like they have this.
I thought they did a really good job last week. Again, they got a shutout. They really carried the team last week.
Yeah, they have the ability to do so, and I just feel like that first week was just a tough look, and I feel like you said, when a defense gives up that many points, it kind of riles you up because you don't want to do that again.
400 yards rushing. I mean, this time around, crazy. Yeah. And to me, before I get to the matchup, Cross River definitely has to get a better start offensively. I thought last week was real slow. Too many mistakes against Lakeland. And it was like 6-0 at halftime before they really started getting going. They have to definitely start off faster. But the matchup to me, I'm looking at this Yorktown offensive line, Mars, versus the John Jay Cross River front seven. Again, this past week, Cross River's front seven I thought played much better. They were much more physical. They created a lot more penetration, made a lot of plays. And now they're going up against a bigger front in Yorktown. And this offensive line, can they create holes to run north and south, is going to be big because I do think they have that size advantage. The player to watch to me, though, I'm looking at the quarterback from Cross River, Craig Galea, the junior. This guy, young guy, but has a lot of really nice physical tools. Again, when you see DeChara as a quarterback, you're expecting more quarterback runs. When you see Galea in the backfield, you're expecting to see more passing. And I thought last week it was a little shaky. He was 10 of 16, 90 yards and a touchdown, had an INT. In week one, though, he threw for, over 300-something yards, right? It was like 350 or 300-something yards. So you want to see the consistency, right? That's where you want to see, because I think he has the talent. He can be really dynamic with these receivers, but you got to see the consistency, and the offensive line has to give him some pass protection. All right, Mars, you ready for the game picks?
Yeah, man, I'm ready to roll.
All right, let's do it again. We put a lot of time in these game picks. I know guys like to have fun with us, and it's all in good fun if we get it wrong. But Mars, let's get into it. And the first game, Lakeland 1-1 at Mahopac, who's 1-1. This is a North League game. And Lakeland last week, no Hickey, no Lund. Again, don't know the status of those guys who are big linemen for them. And the guys who got to step in, offensive line and defense, they got to step up, whether they're there or they're not. On the defensive line, a guy like, Andrew Mendel, I thought made a bunch of plays last week. He's going to have to be big for them on the defensive front and on the offensive line. And I'm looking to see a bounce-back play from Lakeland's quarterback, who I thought, it just wasn't as consistent. They missed too many plays, too many missed opportunities that they got to if they want a chance to win this game. And for Mahopac, Mars, again, I think they should run the ball 75% of the time because they have a size advantage. And running the ball with Koch and Perone against an undersized Lakeland team probably gives them the best opportunity to win in a game I think that they should win. No offense, but I'm wondering, is Lakeland going to try to get revenge? I mean, last time they played in the spring, they couldn't get a fourth down stop to win the game. Mahopac converted on a bunch of those, won, celebrated on their field. Lakeland is a big underdog, right? How do they come out and play? Again, this is an opportunity for Lakeland that no one believed you could do it. Can you do it? I'm going to go with Mahopac. I don't think they can. I think they have too big of a size advantage for Mahopac. I think they'll run the ball successfully, control the clock. And I just don't think the offensive line of Lakeland is going to hold up. I'm going Mahopac.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Mahopac as well. I feel like when the performance of Perone and Koch definitely elevates them, especially the run game. I feel like I agree with you. Just keep running the ball. I mean,
yes.
you have the size advantage. You have these backs that are definitely performing at a high level. You might as well just keep doing it, right? And I feel like
the offensive line played well.
Offensive line's playing well, so the run game is established, right? You just keep doing it, and until they stop you, which I haven't really seen, a lot of teams. Now Somers did, but Lords couldn't. Right? Yep. So at the end of the day, it's like, might as well just keep it going. And then, like you said, Lakeland, for them, this is going to be a kind of, are you going to have your revenge or not? And I feel like this is, it's tough. I mean, you're going into Mahopac, which is always a hard place to play in. But for Lakeland's point of view, are you going to just kind of stay back and remember that loss from last year to kind of end the season on a really tough note, and they celebrate on your field? Are you going to be okay with that? Or are you kind of looking for that chance? And but I'm still going to stick with Mahopac. They have the run game advantage. They have the size advantage. So I'm sticking with them here.
Yep. Next game, Walter Panis 0-2 at Somers, who's 2-0. Again, this is another League North game. And for Walter Panis, they came out last week with Carlucci at quarterback, and they were running the option. I thought they did some good things. And then they brought in quarterback number 2. Not really sure what his name is. I don't have the roster, but they went back to the spread look in the second half. I thought that you saw some good things offensively. Again, it's about the consistency. It's about executing in big moments. They moved McLaulen to guard. He did a really good job of moving bodies when they ran that option stuff. And some of the other offensive linemen really stepped up. But again, going against Somers, that defense is going to be tough sledding. And so it's a big reliance on that offensive line and a guy like Carlucci who's got to hit some of these big plays. And they got to make some big plays in the passing game going against aggressive Somers defense. Somers offensively, I still think they're working the kinks out, but I saw the back step up last week. Defensively, they're probably the best defense in Class A, and I think they'll give Walter Panis some fits. I'm going with Somers.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Somers too. I feel like Walter Panis is definitely headed in the right direction with how they played last week, but Somers is just feeling like everything's melding correctly. The defense is definitely stepping up big time, and their offense is starting to get in the rhythm. So I'm just going to go with Somers here.
Harrison 2-0 at Nyack, who's 0-2. Southern League game. Harrison, again, first 3 weeks, they've made play in each phase of the game. Nyack, you battle in the option. You got to slow down their fullback, and you got to win the early downs. These two teams have split the series, but haven't played in a few years. I'm going to go with Harrison. I just think that they have been playing at a high level in each phase of the game, and Nyack has shown they're susceptible to the run, and that's not a great formula for Harrison. I'm going to go with Harrison.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Harrison too. The fact that, the last thing you said, Nyack is most susceptible to the run, Harrison likes to run, right? I feel like that's kind of just that, the kryptonite there, so I'm going to go with Harrison.
One of the hardest games for me to pick next, Mars. Clarkstown North 1-1 at Pelham, who's 2-0. Southern League game. I look at Clarkstown North. They got the size up front. They got those shifty runners that can get in the open field and hit big-time play. I'm looking at the quarterback spot. Can they hit the play-action plays? Can they make necessary plays to keep this a balanced attack? And can they stop that running back in Shelton? And Pelham side, defense is the identity of this team. This is those type of games where this is where you want to see the defense step up and play big time. The offensive line is big physical, but again, looking at the quarterback and passing game, this has been a real tough one for me to pick. I'm going to go with the upset. I'm going to go with Pelham. I think Pelham wins at home. This is a grand opportunity. Really like the Clarkstown North team. I still think they make the playoffs in the end, but I'm going to go with Pelham to start the season 3-0.
I'm going to go Clarkstown North. I feel like Pelham, this is definitely going to be a tough game, and if they're doing Vegas odds, this would be a pick 'em. And I feel like the defense of Pelham has been very impressive.
I think it'd be 1.5.
1.5. I think Pelham's defense has been impressive. I just think that Clarkstown North just has a little bit more oomph behind their offense, and I think they're just going to have that advantage, which will give them the win here.
Sleepy Hollow 0-2 at Rye, 3-0 in the Southern League. Can Sleepy Hollow find a way to pull off the biggest upset in Section 1? I look, again, this is going to be tough sledding. But to me, Sleepy Hollow has nothing to lose. You have young guys. You want to see them get better. You want to see the veteran guys make the necessary plays to keep them in this game. But I look at Rye defensively. They've had someone step up each week and make a big-time play for them, and I'm expecting that again this week. And you're going to see a heavy dose of that bad man in Whaling behind that offensive line in Tepidino. I don't think the upset happens, Mars. I'm going with Rye.
Yeah, I'm going to go Rye. I've been on the Katie Whaling train all season, and I think he's going to have another great game. But this Rye team in general has a lot of players on it that just make big plays whenever you need it, specifically on the defensive side. I think it's just too tough for Sleepy Hollow to just make that upset here and now. I'm going to go with Rye.
Eastchester 1-1 at Tappan Zee, who's 0-2, another Southern League game. I'm looking to see Sparandino and this rush attack get back on track after a tough game last week. I want to see this offensive line step up. Tappan Zee, I thought, played much better last week, but they've allowed too many big rush plays, and I think Eastchester's going to take advantage of that. I'm going to go with Eastchester, Mars.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Eastchester too. Giving up the run to this much extent is just too much for me, and I think Eastchester's just going to take advantage of that, so I'm going to go with Eastchester here.
Another really tough game. Brewster 1-1 at Lords, who's 1-2. This game can go either way to me, but Brewster on Brewster's side, injuries are obviously a major concern, but we talked about this. Injuries create opportunity, Marcin. Guys who come in now have a big opportunity to get an opportunity to win a big game on the road in this league matchup. And I think they got to make some big pass plays. That's where the veteran guys are at. Whatever quarterback's playing, got to get them the ball into space. And for Lords, how does this young team respond to last week? You were on the road, you got your butts kicked, you got your teeth kicked in, but now you're back home. And how do you respond is going to be really intriguing. This one, to me, really hard to pick, but I am going to go with Brewster. I think this is going to be a really close game. I do think Brewster squeaks it out because they make just enough pass plays to win it.
This one is probably the tougher ones that I've kind of to pick here. I feel like I'm going to go with Brewster. I was originally going to lean towards Lords because of the fact that this power run scheme might be a little much for a team that had some big injuries, but I think Brewster has just more going for it from the offense perspective. They can run and they can pass, and Lords' defense hasn't found the answer to stopping the pass, so I feel like they just have the advantage, so I'm going to go with Brewster here.
Let's go to the game of the week, Mars. Yorktown 1-1 at John Jay Cross River, 1-1. Cross River's homecoming. Nice little rivalry between two prominent programs. Who do you got and why?
Well, this one's tough. I mean, when you look at these two programs, as you mentioned, they're dominant. I mean, they've in the history of A, they've been the top tier. Now, Ryan Somers, the other two that you always think of when you look at A. But when you just take a look at these teams, I feel like each of them has their specialty. They each have their ability to make big plays on the offense and defensive side. Yorktown, I feel like they've just gotten more healthier, which gives them another boost of energy going forward. And I feel like they have this size advantage on their side, and I think that they are going to be looking to run downhill on you. And then when you look on John Jay Cross River side, they have the speed advantage, and they have this up-tempo type of offense that can make a big play, and then if their defense steps up, they'll get back on the field, and then they can hit another one. And it feels like once they get one going, there's always going to be more that keeps going on, the snowball effect. But that being said, I feel like I'm going to go with John Jay Cross River. The reason why, I feel like the home field advantage is definitely going to give them that extra push. I feel like last week their defense stepped it up big time, and now that momentum is kind of carrying over to this week. I feel like if they were, if they had a tough going the second week of the season after they gave up a lot of points, like if they still gave up a good chunk, then I feel like, all right, maybe this defense is still struggling, but they didn't. They stepped up big time. They pitched a shutout. Their offense is now starting to click a little bit more. And like you said, I feel I have a weird inkling that DiChiara is going to have a big game, and I just feel like if he has one big game, it's all over from there. So if it's a close one, I'm going to go with John Jay Cross River.
Again, Yorktown on the offensive line, they're getting a little bit healthier. They're trying to find that consistency in the run game. I want to see this offensive line compete and dominate up front. And I want to see this quarterback continue to be consistent. Don't have a bad game and a good game, right? Try to get a chain now of good games. You had one last week. Yorktown defense, again, you got to play and tackle in space. Multiple guys can hurt you on that Cross River. You got to swarm to the ball and tackle. When I look at John Jay Cross River offensively, they got to get off to a better start. And, they like to play the quick game. If Yorktown's going to bring pressure, they try to get the ball out to their playmakers on one-on-one matchups and have them hit those big home runs. But they're also trying to figure out how to run inside as well. So, they want to make it a track meet defensively. I think they're going to try to create pressure on Morellis, whether it's up the gut or on the outside, and try to bottle up that rollout game, especially rolling out to his right. So it's going to be really intriguing to see. But I really like both these programs and both these coaches. Both these coaches are not, flamboyant guys. They're not guys who you're going to see make headlines and be part of all these articles. They let the kids be the stars of their programs. I really like the way both these programs are coached. Again, they're hard-nosed. They create hard-nosed playing environments and hard-nosed programs. To me, the big thing is Cross River, at home, homecoming, tough environment. Can Yorktown go in and stop them again? I got my JJ hat, and I'm feeling I'm going to go with them, but Yorktown has won the last 4 meetings at John Jay Cross River, Mars. Did you know that? I'm going to go with Yorktown. I'm going with the Crop this week, Mars. The Crop is going to get a big upset victory in this one for a couple of reasons. I think this offensive line will start to gel and they'll start to run downhill. Really like both teams. Really tough game to pick, but I'm going with the Crop. And I had Yorktown going to the Class A championship. It feels like games like this, they need to win to boost that energy. I'm going to go with Yorktown for the big victory. All right, everyone, that was our show. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thank you so much for all the support that you give. We hope you guys enjoy the football weekend, and we'll see you all very soon.